Hey guys, Youngblood with you, and today we're going to go ahead and cover the Q&A post that CIG put up regarding the Origin 600i. Now, this is one of the answer sessions I was looking forward to more, primarily because I had a heck of a lot of questions after the initial launch. That being said, the answers provided aren't going to be all that crowd-pleasing. So we start off with a question about how the exploration version of the 600 compares to the capabilities of the Carrack or the Aquila, and the answer re-established that the 600i Explorer does come with 2 crew scanning stations, a ramp for the rover, and some SCU room to haul things that you find while you're exploring, while being a little bit more lavish and luxurious way to explore than something like the Aquila, while the Carrack would give you something longer-term base of operations type of ship. So that doesn't really answer the question at all. It sounds like the Carrack has more range and facilities to allow you to stay out for longer, which we pretty much knew, but as far as exploration abilities like scanning stations or scanning output options and different ways of wavelengths and scanning range and how it handles jump point mapping and all that sort of thing, we really just don't know. And I think that ends up speaking to the scanning mechanics being in the infancy of their development, so they had to answer the most upvoted question, but didn't really have the specifics to share. Also, in the comparison category, the question about the value proposition came up. Why is the 600i so expensive compared to the Carrack and the Constellation? And the answer they gave was about rarity and desirability traits of real-life vehicles, saying that a sports coupe and a sedan aren't really all that different from what they can do, but people are going to find that coupe to be more desirable, thus it's going to cost more money. I don't really have an issue with the ship being more expensive to help keep it rare because that's their intention in the universe, or that it's a luxury product, but only so much of that can actually be experienced in a game. So most are probably not going to see this as a great selling point. The other thing that they keep comparing this to is like sports cars. Like in the later question, they talk about why there's so little cargo ability on a ship of this size, and the answer was that you can fit more in a minivan than a Lambo, but you're sacrificing the storage for the experience. Again, that's fine, but the comparison to this ship should really be to more something like a large Bentley or another large luxury car, or really more in the yacht category. The analogies to a sports car don't make a whole lot of sense because that performance is something that we would be able to feel in-game. Luxury is a different animal. CIG also goes on to say that there isn't a med bay since they didn't feel that it would be necessary or really used on a ship of this nature, and there was other areas that seemed to fit the luxury stylings better. Up next was a question about exploration version having 36 SCU of cargo space. Is that with or without the rover? And the answer is that the intention at this point is to have a total of 36 SCU without the rover on board. But that's going to be even less when the rover's in place. They can't give a hard number on that until both the rover and the 600i are built, which makes sense, although it does make me think that there's not going to be a ton of space left over after seeing how much space the Ursa takes up in the Constellation today. We'll see, though. This is a dedicated bay for that purpose. CIG clarified that we can swap the modules when that functionality is built, and that you'll be able to purchase the touring or exploration module as a standalone with in-game credits to swap out at your leisure once that functionality is in place. We also hear that the modules are essentially swapping out the entire core of the ship, not just a small section, and they don't really have plans at this point for other modules, though they're not really ruling out adding more down the line. When talking about speed and agility, the comparison to the Constellation came up, wondering how agile it'll be considering it's got twice the mass of the Connie, and they say that the stats on the Connie are old numbers and needing updating, especially on the engine size and the mass, and that's apparently going to be coming in 3.0. But it should be faster in a straight line than the Constellation, but agility-wise it's going to be lower than that of a Constellation. Now that makes sense to a certain extent, as you're more likely to try and run from trouble in this ship than getting into a turning fight, and the Constellation is, a single-deck ship. It's not the double-decker, it's not as wide, so I think from a mathematics standpoint and the way it would perform in the universe, that makes sense. In the weapons and defense category, it was asked why the 600 doesn't come with a point defense hardpoint like the Phoenix and the 890 have, and the reason provided was variety. The 600 does have remote turrets. That would be like, basically, if you had a proficient controller of those turrets, it would allow you to be using those somewhat like a point defense system. Or you could end up installing the AI module to allow it to be computer controlled if no one was in on that station. That seems to indicate that we could potentially see turrets on other ships trying to shoot down missiles or torpedoes at some point, but they obviously need to really iron out the details on the point defense gameplay, as well as just improving the turret experience overall. There was some confusion on the stats of the ship, with some thinking it came with 16 size 3 missiles, other thinking it was 4 times that number. I said 16 in my video, that should you buy video, since that made the most sense based on the information I was seeing, and they clarified that that was indeed the case. There's 4 pylons with 4 size 3 missiles on each of them. Also, there was an impression that you could only run 3 fixed size 5 weapons, which was an issue for a bigger, slower ship like this. However, they did say that you could run gimbals with smaller size weapons on them if you prefer. The 600 was confirmed to be a multi-crew ship, obviously, but they did say that it's about as big of a ship that you could effectively fly solo based on the pilot-controlled weaponry and having the remote turrets on board. It's not going to be a very quick ship, though, so I think it would be pretty tough in certain combat situations to really survive, though they do say the shielding on it is fairly good. In regards to what it can actually carry in the cargo and ramp area, they said it would be most likely not able to fit an 85X based on the footprint, which shouldn't be surprising. But they wouldn't really know until the actual ship is built, which makes sense. Again, they're not going to know, and things tend to grow. Again, anything that can fit in the cargo area can go there, though. There's no restriction stopping you from putting like say a Merlin or something like that, if it technically fit. But even if it could fit, it sounds like the ramp for the rover means that it would be hard to get a non-ground-based vehicle into that spot without sustaining damage during the process. They also say that the plan right now is to allow for the X1 open canopy racer to actually fit in the general cargo area of the Explorer version, while the rover is in the rover and kind of bay and ramp area. However, if you wanted to actually get the X1 out, you'd first have to back the rover out, so it's probably best for you to choose which you're going to be using instead of taking both along, although I doubt most people are going to do that. About the rover, it was confirmed that if you buy the exploration version and then CCU that to another ship, you'd be able to keep the rover, since it's actually a separate line item in the ship package. As far as onboard facilities are concerned, it was said that they've got 3 crew stations with 2 more spots in the exploration version that are scanning stations. And then all versions have a captain's quarters, a bed for anyone else on board. They're not sure how many toilets the ship's going to have yet, but they're counting on at least 2 in the crew's bathroom area, as long as another one in the captain's quarters. And then in gameplay options, in that kind of question range, it was asked about how this ship would perform in the VIP transport like a 890 Jump or a Starliner. And they said that this is more of a personal vehicle, less of a transport option. The 890 is a super yacht, and the Genesis is really more of a commercial liner. This would be for more moving you and your family around. And I think that's kind of a bummer, because it potentially limits one of the main income sources out of a luxury ship, meaning that this is more of a recreational vehicle than a transport, though I'm sure it could still be used to some extent as far as hauling VIPs around, but it would limit your crew probably. And finally, the reason the exploration version wasn't called the 615 instead of the 600i is because it's a module that can be swapped. It's not a unique hull or a different variant. So as you can see, the majority of these questions are focused on the comparison to other ships, which means there's a lot of people out there trying to assess value. We already know that luxury ships, basically what you get in return for the cost is not really there. But it's not surprising to see that people are trying to justify the cost of purchase. Overall, my recommendation in the should you buy video of this being wrong for most people still holds up, if maybe not even a bit more stronger do not buy recommendation. That being said, it's a great looking ship that should be cool to be on board. So for your random non-mission times where you just want to fly around and see the verse, I think it's a cool ship for that sort of experience. So that's going to be it for this video. If you guys have questions, let me know. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Stay tuned for a whole lot more, and have a great day. Take care.